Welcome to the CEO and the Salesman podcast. I'm your host, Matthew White. I'm the salesman part of the title. Each week, I sit down with CEOs and entrepreneurs to discuss and dissect their journeys, filled with triumphs, challenges, and some good old-fashioned business wisdom. Get ready to laugh, learn, and be inspired as we dig into leadership, strategy, sales, marketing, and everything in between. This is the CEO and the Salesman podcast. Let's get on with the show. Welcome to the CEO and the Salesman podcast, where we talk to Australia's leading tech CEOs and uncover their thoughts and ideas on how to grow a successful tech company. Today, we've got Tom Gleeson, the CEO of Kepler Analytics. G'day, Tom. How are you going?
Hey, Matt. I'm great. How are you?
Very, very well. Now, look, unlike a lot of regular podcasts, we're not just going to make this a pure self-promotion thing, so sorry about that. But what I would like to talk to you about, mate, I want to get into it. When we were talking the other day, you mentioned that you just had all your leadership into your business back in one place. So I wanted to talk about a couple of things. First of all, the importance of getting face-to-face with your leadership team, but also why did you get them together to reset the company vision? You're really successful. You're growing the business very well. So why did you bring everybody together?
Well, Matt, I think it's critical to get face time with the team. I think since COVID put us all into our home offices here, where we are today, it's actually been a bit of a challenge, I think, for a lot of businesses to get people out of their homes. And in a tech company, there's a lot of the technical guys may or may not want to be around people as well. But the reality is, the water cooler conversations, the tidbits that you get from just being around other people, the casual conversations, you just can't get that with a Teams call or Zoom. So I try and get the team together, whenever we can. Our leadership team in Australia at least once a month down at HQ in Melbourne. But this time around, we actually had an opportunity to have our whole board together and all of the executive committees. So myself, our founder, who's also a director of the board, COO and CFO. I think this Wednesday was the first time we'd actually all been in the same room for a board meeting. It was absolutely fantastic. It just made the conversation that much more natural, and being able to see everybody face to face, there's nothing like it.
Mate, I want to go in 4 different directions. I wrote down. I've already started taking notes, but so tell me, what did you? We talked about vision and values. We talked about resetting the mid and long-term vision the other day. How important is that to your business?
Oh, it's critical, Matt. About this time last year, I arrived in Kepler in March 23. So around this time last year, we made a concerted effort to formalise for the first time the purpose, vision, and values for Kepler Analytics. It was something that was, in the DNA of the organisation. Particularly, customers must succeed. That's been the mantra from Kepler since the day it was formed, which I absolutely love. But in general, the vision, the North Star, where we're all going, and our purpose, our race on data. Why do what gets us out of bed in the morning? That's critically important to an organisation. So, this time last year, we set out what our purpose, vision, and values for the organisation were. In fact, we call them principles rather than values. They're more behavioural and action orientated than a simple value like integrity or accountability. We try and put a bit more nuance into those, but also
right.
Flowing down from that vision, there then has to be what we call a high definition destination, a more granular description of what that future state looks like. So we picked a date 3 years into the future, at the time 30th of June 2026, and then we wrote down a description of what the organisation would be across a number of different dimensions: product, financial, technology, those sort of things. And then beside that description, then a bunch of metrics that would give us an indication of how well or how far we'd travelled towards that destination. And then on the right hand side of the page, it's this is a version of a plan on a page, if you will, but
Yep.
it's a particular flavour. We then set out the strategic priorities for the organisation across five strategic priorities. For me, one was around commercial excellence and how do you take a very entrepreneurial team and put some of the rigor around the deals that we decide to do and not do, and what that means as well. That was critically important for me, and coming from organisations like GE and McKinsey, where that commercial rigor is really important. That's something I felt like we could really benefit from as an organisation. So we set the 5 strategic priorities with a description of what success looks like in 3 years' time, and a bunch of metrics as well. So that gave the whole organisation a sense of what our purpose was, where we were going, and what it would look like when we got there. Right, where we didn't get so far, probably last time around, was around then taking those into proper OKRs. We got a bit busy with a few things, and in that flow down didn't quite happen as well as I would have probably liked. So this time around, we're going to update that high definition destination, see what's changed, see where we need to pivot, what we keep, what we change, and then make sure this time we do a better job of flowing it down to the organisation.
You mentioned that you worked with GE and also McKinsey, but actually and we were just talking before we got online here about the air show on the Gold Coast and your enthusiasm for planes and all things aviation. So tell me, you're in the Air Force for some time. How does a person go from being in the Air Force to fast forward to a CEO of an organization? What lessons, I guess, what lessons have you learned inside the Air Force that you're able to carry through on a day to day?
A good question, Matt. There's a lot of places I want to go there, but to your point of how did I get there is the first one, and I think
Yep.
this is where actually a mentor of mine, the father of one of my best school friends, I remember him asking me one day in the early 2000s, what are you going to do when you leave the Air Force? And I honestly hadn't given it any thought at all. He just planted the seed. He goes, oh, my son, your mate, James, and you should go and do an MBA. I think it'd be very, very useful for you. I went, okay, what's an MBA? So I started doing a little bit of research. Started reading the Fin Review, and by that stage, I had no intention on leaving. But as it so happened, did myself some damage to my back and neck from flying under high G. So I sort of got to the stage where I couldn't fly jets anymore, and needed to look for other opportunities. So off to the MBA it was, and coming out of the MBA, I still didn't know what I wanted to do. So, I had some more friends then that said, hey, well, you should consider, management consulting, continue the education process post MBA and see where that gets you. So, oh, that sounds like a good idea. And a couple of the people who I most admired on the MBA were former consultants and seemed to know way more than the rest of us about most of things we were talking about on the MBA. So, well, why not? And I was, fortunate enough to get an opportunity with McKinsey, and after a few years, I still didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up. But and so I spent some time running my own businesses around renewable energy and software and the like, before finally landing in GE for my first proper sales role. So that journey was really a combination of advice from mentors, friends, never saying no to a conversation, and still trying to find out where I wanted to go. But there was no deep planning there, I promise.
so just carrying on from following your curiosity and just going down the path.
Yeah, there's an element of that, but after a little while, certainly when the opportunity came up with GE, I recognised that although I'd been a management consultant and an entrepreneur, I also knew that if I wanted to be a senior leader in a business, I needed to carry the bag at some point and get a sales role. So when the opportunity came up with GE to run the Qantas account, it's slightly different type of sales role, a bit of account management as well in there, and sort of big complex engine deals. But I thought, well, that's something I actually need. If I want to be a senior leader, I need to have that sales role. And after a few
So what were you
years there,
so what were you selling to Qantas?
Engine services, jet engines, spare engines. So when there was an aircraft competition, you wanted, a GE or CFM engine to be on that jet, and then
Right.
alongside that generally comes a big services agreement. So yeah, big
Mate, I would have
deals,
thought that.
irregular.
Yeah, I can imagine. I would have thought that those types of decisions would have been made a long time before the planes are even built. So how do you get to that point where you're actually able to make a sale of an engine?
It's a good question. So if we take, for example, the 787 engines, the GE NX engine. The deal for that services agreement had been going for years before I arrived in the role.
Right.
So I think several previous sales directors had been working that deal. The jets had been delayed out of Boeing, and there was a basic MOU agreement in place on what it would look like, but all the details around it when the engines and the jets started actually arriving, there was still a ton of work to do. But it really is the nature of that role, which is very long cycle. You could spend 2 years in a role as a sales director for an airline and not see an engine deal.
Wow.
Airlines buy aircraft every 20, 25 years. Um,
Sure.
but
So
there's
how do you
always something
measure
to do.
KPIs? How do you, yeah, so yeah, actually, so there's quite a few of the people who are listening, do very large deals, and I've been part of some very large deals to
Yeah.
mining companies, and it's taken years to do that. So from your perspective, as what was you know, how did you keep yourself, I guess, on task? What did you do if you've got
Well,
3 year deal cycle?
yeah, no, there's a couple of different things. So you have those larger deals, like the big engine services deals, or if there's an aircraft campaign, I mean, that's all consuming when it happens. But in the interim, there's also opportunities to sell spare engines or to swap out some engines with better fuel burn and bring the old engines for parts back into the GE's maintenance system and the like. So there's all sorts of different things. There's paying out guarantees on fuel burn and things that you can do to try and eke out some margin here and there as well. So there's always a conversation going on, and because it was also as much an account management role as sales, there was also a lot of work there with the broader organisation, bringing the best of GE, including fuel burn improvement technologies, methodologies. GE, of course, well known for its leadership training as well, which we bring to our customers all over the world. So there were lots of things to do to make sure you had engagement across the organisation, and we're bringing the best of GE to our customers.
So what just you mentioned training, and I'm always interested in staff training. In my background, I've been a reasonably good salesperson, so I've trained salespeople. But so how do you currently, with your background in Air Force, obviously a lot of training, GE, a lot of training. What sort of training do you bring into your current business? Being so much smaller, obviously, the military and GE are giant global organizations from a government organization to probably, I think GE is the largest business in the world, is it? Or at the time?
No, well, it's
One,
actually been split up now into three
yeah,
parts, but
yeah.
and certainly it had gone through some troubles over the last 10 years or so. It seems to be doing well coming out the other side. Look, it's a good question, and in our high definition destination, we talk about the aspiration for our people in 3 years' time, and one of the metrics we've got alongside that is an L&D budget of 2% of our annual recurring revenue. Now, we didn't get close to that last year for a number of reasons, but it's staying in there, and it is something that I want to do more of as an organisation. It's not something that we've done a lot at the moment. There are a few folk who have done various courses and the like, and certainly I've spent sessions with our senior leadership team on the 7-step problem solving process for McKinsey, doing proper pitch decks, storytelling, all those types of skills. So I try and get those within the organisation who have that experience to share it, because we don't necessarily have a large budget at the moment. I do actually want over the next couple of months to spend some more time looking at preferences and behavioural profiles and things like DISC. Through all those organisations I've worked for, I've done Myers-Briggs, Emergenetics, DISC, lifestyle inventories, all those sorts of things, and some deeper ones. And I think it really gives fantastic insight to the team on how other people think and how your natural preferences can come across to others. And so, alongside training, I think getting to understand the team dynamics is also going to be a high priority for us in the next year.
Yeah, very cool. Okay. And so, where would you go for that type of training? Do you have, do you have businesses that you know and you would use, or would you be developing that internally?
Yeah, look, we're very fortunate to have an HR partner, a consultant on a retainer for us, and she's been fantastic. Well, her company brings the best of all the people they have to our little tech company, and she's also a practitioner, and with a focus on high performance in teams as well. So we redid my DISC profile the other day, and the next step, she'll help us to roll it out to the senior leadership team, and then potentially beyond. So I think having that for companies that aren't big enough to have your own internal HR, and in fact, even if you are big enough, sometimes, or certainly in our case, it's worth having somebody on the outside that can bring a broad breadth of experience and reach into their network to help bring whatever skills we need at the time to us, because it's very rare to find that unicorn who can sit in your company and do all that. So for us, Constance has been amazing.
Have you noticed that, if you've done a whole range of various Myers-Briggs, let's pick on that one for the moment, that's been around for a long time. Have you noticed that your profile or anybody's profile has changed over time with life experience, or do you feel that that's reasonably set?
Some things are similar, some things change. I think my DISC profile has been reasonably consistent, but my MBTI from the time I first did it in the Air Force in '96, I think they tried it on a few of us as the Air Force was starting to do that, and most of the pilots were ESTJ, which
Right.
kind of makes sense. I think as after the Air Force and going into McKinsey and becoming a bit more conceptual and frameworky rather than responding to the inputs in front of us. I found my extroversion's probably gone down over time. I've moved from sort of sensing to perceiving a lot more, and I kind of sit in the middle there now. Still a very strong T. Although interestingly, my clients when I was there thought I was an F type, which I think was interesting because my family certainly doesn't think that. And J, of going from being a reasonably strong J towards more P over time, I think, or maybe the Air Force just caused me to behave like a J. I don't know. I
What
find
does
it
J
interesting.
stand for?
Oh, it's more the judging versus perceiving, I think.
Right.
And so it's, when you think of someone who's organized, neat, tidy, focused, details orientated, versus take it as she comes, do you plan your holiday out, or you just arrive at your destination and go for it? There's all sorts of different ways of thinking about the J versus P. How comfortable are you with uncertainty versus needing everything buttoned down? All those types of things are kind of that's where that one sits.
Got it. Well, it occurs to me I'd like my fighter pilots to be reasonably buttoned down, if you don't mind. Uh, it's pretty precision. It's a pretty precise job.
Yes, but there's also all sorts of stuff that pops up unexpectedly. So you don't want to be too set in your game plan.
Oh, okay. So you're talking about how it would be. You would like it to be buttoned down, but if you want to also be able to adapt to change.
Well, yes, but remember, part of what enables you to adapt to emergencies is a whole bunch of training on situations as well, right? It's not just your mindset, it's the fact that you actually practice endlessly all sorts of different emergencies and situations that enables you to react to changes as they happen with some degree of knowing what to do rather than making it up as you go along.
Got it. Okay. So you mentioned mentors earlier. So as part of your business and part of your training, is that something that you do implement inside the organization? So you do place mentors or you encourage mentors through your business?
Not officially, but it we're doing some related things with a few people in the company. I think we're a reasonably small organisation at the moment. Hopefully we'll be back in a more of a growing the team phase again by around the end of the year. But it's something we've discussed and would like to do, but haven't yet done it.
So you mentioned you bringing your board together at the top of our conversation. Um, how do you best make use of a board? Have you figured that out yet?
Mm. It's a really good question, right? Board members do bring a bunch of skills from all sorts of places. Our investor base is very broadly venture capital and private equity. Well connected with other tech companies, capabilities, industries. Uh, Look, we do tap into them. I'm not sure that I've been able to probably get the most out of it at the moment, but we have used them for anything from introductions to technology partnerships to customer introductions. Customers that we haven't been able to crack yet.
Got it.
Our board's very well connected, so even just getting you a conversation, in front of a potential client that you haven't been able to get, has been really helpful.
So you use them from a point of view of not just from strategic or sounding board, but also as a springboard into other, I guess, industries and under contacts.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's several of them have backgrounds in strategy consulting as well, right? So this week, when we're talking about the next, couple of years and what that means for us, the directions we're going to take, the technology plays, etc. They are fantastic at that sort of conversation and conceptual thinking as well. So I think that was particularly valuable for us this week.
Got it. Okay. So switching over to your role as a CEO, what do you see as we've talked about OKRs and KPIs. What do you see as the main job of a CEO?
Several fold, but in my broad my broad answer is going to be whatever the organisation needs me to be,
Yep.
and that is, I'm not going to say, sometimes you need to be a strategist, sometimes you need to be a doer, sometimes you need to be the counselor or priest, sometimes you need to be the glue, sometimes you need to be the hammer. So if I take that more broadly, though, it's going to be around unblocking what's inhibiting your team from succeeding. So, if that's process improvement that's blocking them, whether it's tools, enablement, technology, whether it's financial or anything else, whether it's something personal for them, whether it's the way that their preferences are, maybe stopping them from getting ahead, helping them help themselves. It's such a broad question, Matt. It really
So
comes
okay,
down to the
let me know.
individual.
Let me narrow it down then. What's the most important thing to you over the course of the next 12 months as a CEO inside? And if you don't, obviously, no names and no court martial, so to speak, no specifics if you don't want to get into them. But so I just want to understand from a CEO's perspective, what's your focus for the next 12 months?
Sure, it's sales. Absolutely. We've come off a record Q4, which was fantastic. We're we're starting to get more traction in the US market. That's been tough for a couple of years, and we've got to keep that momentum going now over the next year. So I love getting involved in sales, help cooking up deals, helping make the deal sausage, so to speak, and
Yep.
helping the team get deals across the line. So that really is a focus for me over the next year.
What's your role in sales? Are you? I can't imagine you making many cold calls, but so what's your role in deals? Is it? Yeah. So I won't try to answer the question and ask it at the same time. So yeah, what's your role in a deal?
It's more around working with the team to understand the context of the deal, the customer history, the stakeholders, and with all the background that our team has, because they are very well connected in retail. It's then with that context to help them construct a deal that's going to work for the customer, solves the customer problems, is commercially, viable, for us, and doesn't take, a year and a half to execute. So it's really around that strategy and commercial side, where myself, CFO, COO, all have all been around for a number of decades. So we broadly try and help the team, get to an answer that works for the customer and works for us.
Yeah, got it. Okay. So when it comes to when we were speaking the other day, you said that you feel like a bit of a fixer on the commercial side. So when we and also within the organisation. So how has that played out in the current iteration of the business?
I think we've got, I think, a lot more discipline around the sales process. Not saying yes to everything that the customer wants, being able to push back and have good commercial discussions. Yeah, we don't have to. We're not giving away probably as much. We're being more targeted in the deals we go after. We're quite, I think, diligent around the contract terms that we accept, and what we're not willing to accept as well. So I think the risk return trade-offs, I think, in those conversations are hopefully a bit more nuanced than a year ago.
Got it. Yeah, you've mentioned a couple of times actually what deals you would take and what you won't take. Also, what not to do. You mentioned that within the context of our conversation about you're bringing everybody together. Um, what what damage have you seen, or if there has been damage, what is the consequences of getting a bad customer?
I think at the end, it's really a lot of bandwidth being used up by the team in managing that customer, and low margin commercials, and those two are often related. Before, during, and after the deal. So yeah, that's basically it. Taking on bad deals churns your team and doesn't make you any money.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So when we talked about culture earlier, so when you think about the business's culture, what would you say your business culture is?
Couple of things. Kepler's got its history rooted in innovation, right? And we are at the forefront of using our technology in the application that we have. Counting foot traffic for retailers. We're the only company in the world that is doing that. So innovation is definitely part of that DNA. As I said before, customers must succeed. Kepler also has a reputation for, our customer success team are often, all ex-retailers, and quite often were customers of Kepler before they came over to us as well. So they're deeply experienced retailers that, stop at nothing to actually help our customers succeed. So that is certainly part of the DNA as well. So those are probably the two main things I'd say at the moment.
Got it. How do you measure foot traffic?
Well, we have a sensor device that the founder invented back when he was an engineering student at Melbourne University. invented a sensor technology that picks up the energy coming out of smart devices. The initial application he had was finding miners trapped underground, and that didn't work. But after a couple of iterations of the company, he found a niche in counting foot traffic in specialty retail. So the sensor is placed, under the point of sale counter. Picture any small format apparel retailer, and it measures your phone, smart devices, pinging cell towers.
Right.
Yeah, we
And
use that
how
to
does
count
that?
traffic.
And so, I don't want this to get into a demo or a sales pitch for Kepler, but I'm actually interested. So, as I said, I'm just going to follow what I'm interested in. I might ask you about aliens and flying later, but specifically, specifically, what? Why is that important? Why is knowing the amount of foot traffic important to retailers? I mean, wouldn't just the number of deals or number of sales be important?
Well, that the end result, but you don't know how you got there. And so foot traffic counting's been around for about 20 years or so. Traditionally,
Yeah,
a camera above
right.
the door counting entries and exits, and that's fine. What this sensor does, it doesn't require a cable run. It's got a SIM card. It communicates directly to the cloud for all dashboards. It's plug and play under the POS counter. And what it does is it gives you, it can measure traffic all the way through the customer path to purchase. Now, when you think around your online sales channel and how much knowledge online retailers have of that customer journey,
Every
compared to
step, every page, every click,
exactly
even heat maps, and we know exactly what they're doing all the time. Yeah,
Exactly, but when you think about bricks and mortar, there's not that level of data to enable you to understand how you're converting people through that whole customer journey. So when you think about what our single sensor can do, it's got about around a 50-meter radius, right, which is all your surrounding traffic, and it's kind of your catchment area, right? We can also calibrate, 3 meters to the footpath or 5 meters to the middle of the mall to understand that passerby traffic that you're paying rent for. So property teams love that, right? And then you can
yes,
see how well you're converting that passerby traffic, through the attractiveness of your window front into the store, and that's your shop front conversion. How good is
yep,
that? And by the way, you're doing this across your entire store network, so you know who's doing it well and who's not. But you also now know your inside traffic versus that catchment within 50 meters. And particularly if you're surrounded by competitors, you get a sense if there's 1,000 people in that catchment in a given hour, and you've got 100 coming into your store, then you have a sense that that number in and of itself is a good, bad, don't know. It requires context, but you can see the trends. When you're on promotion, when your competitors around you are on promotion, what happens to that traffic? And then, of course, you can put a sensor in a fitting room where you can't put a camera, and generally, if you can get them to try before you buy, whether that be a fitting
sure.
room or a vacuum cleaner or anything else, if you can get to that testing area, they're more likely to buy. You can see how well your team on the floor is converting that inside traffic to that fitting room where that they're more likely to buy. And then, of course, you can also put a sensor in the menswear, women's wear, accessories, and you can start to understand how well the individual areas are going with respect to traffic. And also, in a more advanced analytics, you can start to understand the customer journey, through those zones as well. So
Got it.
it's a technology that provides that whole path to purchase insight for bricks and mortar retailers that they've never had before.
So, is there any truth to the urban myth that when women walk into a store, they turn right and men turn left?
I cannot confirm or deny that myth, but I think in certain shops, I understand some people told me the other day that turning left is more frequent than turning right, but I'm not sure of those details.
Right. Okay. Just always interesting. So, look. So how does your customers are using this data, and then they're able to make edits to their shop front or their display or their sales pathway, that type of thing. How have you? Does that reflect inside your organization of how you track your customers' journey through from being a lead through to a sale?
We use a CRM like most companies, to track our sales progression, Matt. So we understand the sales funnel in the same way that we we show our retailers how to understand their path to purchase as well. It's a little bit different. I don't know what our shop front is there, or our fitting room, if you like, but certainly the demo is an important part of getting that sale done. And also, quite often running a pilot for them, a small selection of stores across, you have different formats, different geographies, high and low performing stores, to get that sample of what it would mean for them to be able to compare across your network, which is really where a lot of that benefit is. A/B testing before and after, taking what that highly successful stores are doing, getting your bottom performers up to that median level of performance. Yeah, that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, excellent. And so, when it comes to running the organization, who do you interact with the most? So internally,
Right.
who do you
So,
spend your most time with? Because what I'm trying to understand here is how the day in the life of the CEO. What's that look like?
okay. I spent a lot of time. CFO, COO, and I are pretty well joined at the hip. I'd say
Hmm.
after that, it's generally the sales teams. We have teams in the US and the UK and Australia. Australia covering the whole APAC region as well. So talking to all the sales teams and working on deals is where I'm spending a lot of my time. This particular week, I'm going to fly down to Melbourne this week, and I'm going to spend most of the week working on a major RFP for the organisation. And I'll be doing that with CFO, COO, and our GM of Customer Analytics as well, who's got a fair bit of experience in that area. That's the sort of deal that we don't want the frontline teams distracting themselves with, because it's going to be all encompassing for the next couple of weeks. But and so when we're talking about my role as such in this case, this week, is my role is to free up the APAC sales team to go and close out the next couple of quarters really well with the strong pipe that they have, and leave me and the other execs to work through this damn RFP. That's our role this week.
And how much, how much is the percentage of you spending on RFPs or the tenders, those types of things, versus traditional lead generation and sales?
Very little on RFPs.
Yeah. Okay.
We did
Why is
one
that?
last. Oh, they soak up a lot of organizational bandwidth. And in my experience, unless you have been influential in writing the RFP, it does tend to be a bit of a crapshoot on whether it's successful or not. So I'm not going to churn the organisation on a low probability, highly painful process. I think we, particularly in the Australian New Zealand market, we know every retail. We have a path to a referral or a meeting with every retailer in the country, pretty much. So RFPs are not the way to go for us in general. This one is a little bit different for a number of reasons I won't get into, but generally, no, I don't like RFPs at all.
I've met very few CEOs who love the RFP process. I'm not sure who invented them, but take note, nobody likes it.
Yeah,
And
unless you
so, mate,
unless you write it for the for the company and it's made
yeah,
for you.
well, yeah, well, I was involved in doing exactly that. So we with one of the businesses I was involved in, and I won't use any names, but essentially we helped them write the RFP. Well, because it was early stage and we knew them from not socially but through the network, and asked them what the next stages were. Oh, we've got to go out to market. Said, well, who's going to write it? And it took us. Of course, the good thing is we were able to charge the customer to write the RFP, and then of course the RFP was reasonably well warmed up to go with the customer that I was working with. Other than that,
That's
I just not
best
seen.
practice.
There you go, best practice. How much time do you spend? Speaking of best practice, and this is something that I've been thinking about recently. How much time do you spend thinking about best practice? And does best practice create sameness in an industry?
I spent a fair bit of time thinking about where the pain points are in the organisation and what we can do better. Um,
Mm.
whether or not we're in a position to implement best practice, whether or not I know what best practice is, whether or not it's how achievable that is, I think it depends on the problem you're facing into. But certainly, continuous improvement and a growth mindset are, I think, foundational to any successful organisation. So, in having said that, on the other hand, it's hard to work on the business when you're so busy working in the business as well. So,
Mm.
what I really enjoyed about the last 3 days or last week with the exec team and founder was talking about what are we going to do differently. Stepping away from the day to day, and actually having a good think about where the future lies for us, where we're going to be successful, how we're going to get there, what do we need to get there. What does that mean for our people, the organisation? Where do we have those gaps, those single points of failure that are going to stop us from getting to that high definition destination? Um, so I'd say we spent a good portion of last week thinking pretty much of nothing else, but not so much best practice, but what are we going to do? What do we need to do better, do differently to achieve that future state?
Yeah, I've just been thinking about best practice quite a bit. I had a conversation with another CEO last week, and they have a position where we start with practice, whether or not it's best is another matter, and then finding out the uniqueness inside the organization to turn that, to make it their own. Because what he was concerned about is the sameness, is going, well, everybody does it this way, so we're going to do it this way as well, which is a safe option, but not necessarily innovative or breakout or creates a uniqueness within the organization.
Yeah, look, I think that's an interesting point, because I think there's probably some areas where there is a fairly obvious best practice that you'd like to get to, but um, I remember when GE likes to take stuff and brand it their own way.
Of
So I
course.
remember they took Eric Ries's lean startup and
Yep.
turned it into FastWorks, and that
Right.
was something that my commercial transformation team over in Cincinnati, all traditionally black belts, sort of adopted the FastWorks methodology for different types of initiatives. And I think that's a good example of taking something that is, and they had Eric Ries help them actually do this as well, adapt it for the organisation and the GE context. So, and I know plenty of organisations that have taken on lean and called it something, specific to the organisation because of the connotations that lean has in some organisations. So, I think that's fair, right? You've got to do what fits the culture of your team. And if it means you only adopt something to maybe 60% of I guess the purest vision of what that is, and
Yep.
that works, then to me that's more important than driving a methodology down someone's throat, that may not be applicable. As I said,
Well,
as long as you're growing and improving, best practice is less important to me than that growth mindset.
yeah, absolutely. You mentioned that the GE takes an idea and then brands it themselves, and nobody does it better than Apple. I mean, my kids have a VR headset, but they don't have they've got a VR headset from Meta, but Apple doesn't sell a VR headset; they sell Vision Pro. Yeah, and I saw a YouTube video how Apple has more branded concepts or branded general ideas that they've put a name on than any other organization in the world. So
Mm.
it's about finding. Same with my organization, right? So we do sales and marketing for tech businesses, but I don't do a marketing plan. I do a roadmap, and that's based off a series. I don't do scoping and discovery. I do a market decider. So every part, and I don't do. I do all of these pieces of my business. I actually have rebranded it or named it, because what I don't want to have happen is somebody go, oh, well, here's the plan. You go execute it, Matthew. And I look at it and go, well, I wouldn't recommend this and I wouldn't do that. And this is not the right way to position that. And so what happens is it starts becoming an argument with the document which the customer has bought into. Whereas what I'll do is I'll go and every customer, we won't use we'll take it on board. We'll take on board other people's ideas, of course. But what we'll then do is put it through our filter to make sure it actually works for the customer using our specific framework. And that has made a serious difference in our customer onboarding journey, customer, I guess, acceptance to next phase is to do that branding piece, but also then have it within the flavor of our organization, sort of bring the customer through the journey. So that's something we've done a lot of there. So look, as we wrap up, I just wanted to, what are the 2 or 3 key things that you think other tech CEOs should be thinking about? It's middle of 2024. We're looking over the next year. You've got a 3-year vision in your business. What are the 2 or 3 things that those tech CEOs should be thinking about over the course of that time?
I think it's very contextual to the to where those companies are at, right? Because at the moment, for me, international expansion into the US and what's the best channel to achieve that, success is top of mind for me. I think over the last couple of years, we've also seen funding dry up quite a lot across the VC and PE world. So, and companies, driving to profitability, gone are the days of acquiring customers at all costs. So, for us, the journey to break even was pivotal, right? And giving ourselves the runway to create the growth that we need and expand into other markets. So that's been top of mind for us for the year. So managing your runway in a capital constrained environment, I think has been a very common topic over the last little while, and I think probably will be for a little while yet. So, and I think the way to do that, and we've spoken about this already, is changing the structure of the deals that you're making, driving profit out of all parts of the deal. It's not just revenue at all costs. Think about the markets and the customers that are going to give you that growth, that profitable growth, right? Not growth at all costs. So that's one, I think. And I think thirdly, but possibly most important, is the teams. Right, tech's been through some up and downs over the last few years. The last tech company I ran, we were in the middle of a boom and couldn't find anyone. Then there's a bit more of a bust, and now I think there's keeping that talent is critical for tech companies. We are people businesses, so creating that environment that's going to make you attract and retain good people is something that I'm spending more and more time on, and will be over the next year. I think it's going to be critical for us.
Got it. Fantastic. Well, look, Tom, really appreciate our conversation today. Thank you so much for your time. We're going to, let's leave it at that. Thank you so much. I've actually really enjoyed our conversation. I love getting into the bits and pieces, the nuance of I know I sort of asked some really specific stuff around strategy, but this is the stuff that I think our customers, the public who watch these interviews are going to get some real value out of, because I think there's a real tendency in tech to focus on the tech. And what's interesting is, through your career, you've had a whole bunch of roles, but what we've spoken about mostly today is that leadership and sales piece. And that is, and that's a great message to get out there, that, if we don't make a sale, it's hard to run a business.
Yeah. We can make a lot more money out of sales that we win.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks very much, Tom. Talk to you later. Bye for now.
Thanks, Matt. Enjoy it.